Saturday and Sunday. I'm Kevin Cohen with your On Point local weather.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces. Summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point. Please press button now. No, number 1.
This is Sports Talk with Phil Kornbluth, Chris Bergen, and Pat Daniel. Sports Talk is heard across the state on radio affiliates of the Sports Talk Media Network and is streaming live on SportsTalkSC.com, as well as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. The South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number to call in is 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now, here are Phil, Chris, and Pat with tonight's edition of Sports Talk.
All right, welcome in, everybody. Sports Talk Media Network, back in the studios here in Columbia at The Point Radio. Had a chance to see Kev Cohen on my way into the studio. He's looking mighty fine these days. You folks in Columbia, you're lucky to have a guy like Kev Cohen to listen to in the afternoon leading into Sports Talk. Good to be back in the studio. Pat, how the hell are you? You got a little porn stash going there, huh? We were talking about that a minute ago. I didn't notice that on the screen when I was on the road here the last week or so.
You're very observant, my friend. You've been a busy man. Yeah, I don't know. Going back to college, meet a bunch of friends. We typically try to celebrate the 4th, and it's a tradition now. As much as the wives and girlfriends may hate us for it, we always shave our beards into funny patterns for the 4th, and I decided to keep mine just to get your reaction, big boy.
Well, it looks good. It looks good. You know, a little something different. Okay, so we are here on a Thursday night, wide open for your phone calls, and the phone number 888-898-2525. That is the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. I am going to catch up everything, and I know if you follow recruiting, some of it will be old news to you, but I'm going to catch up on a lot of the recruiting stuff in the past 2 or 3 days that we haven't been able to get to in bulk. We'll do that tonight. Mike Morgan on the move, expected to be with us tonight at 7:05. Though I haven't confirmed that with Mikey just yet. I would think that he would like to be with us tonight during his regular spot. And we're open for your calls. We can pick up on where we left off last night. I want to talk more. If you didn't get a chance to share your opinion about our conversation on the tweet by the Georgia recruiting coordinator, more or less director of recruiting, and if I'm making something out of nothing, so be it. That's what Pat thinks it is, something out of nothing. I looked at it again and again and again last night, and I still can't shake myself from my opinion on it. So I don't change my view on it whatsoever. If you had a chance to look at it, feel free to share a thought or two or something else that's on your mind. Never too early, of course, to start talking about what's ahead for us in the world of college football, with SEC and ACC Media Days coming up now. SEC Media Days beginning a week from Monday. Can you believe that? A week from Monday in Nashville this time. And then the ACC Media Days will be the following week in Charlotte. Of course, we'll have it all covered for you here on Sports Talk. Our poll question of the week, hopefully you've gotten a chance to vote. We're up to 649 votes. Clemson might run the table this season, but odds makers in Las Vegas are betting against it. Which of these games is Clemson most likely to lose? 63.9% of 649 votes are saying the game against South Carolina. Now, I know there's a lot of Gamecock fans jumping in there. I'm not stupid. But, I mean, do they really think that? Do they really think South Carolina is the team most likely to spoil a perfect season for Clemson if the Tigers were to get to that point at the end of the season? 21.7% say the Florida State game at Death Valley. 12.2% the Notre Dame game at Death Valley. 2.2% the North Carolina game at Death Valley. You know, this is one of the most attractive home schedules for Clemson coming up this season in a good while when you look at some of those games I just mentioned. And one of the toughest schedules that they will be facing, that I think they'll be facing something like this level of difficulty for them in a long time. Because, again, some of these teams in the ACC you expect have gotten better, And, of course, you throw Notre Dame in there, which is a sort of kind of an ACC team, but not truly. But, look, Duke all of a sudden feels pretty good about its football team. And you're opening the season there against a veteran quarterback who was outstanding last year. Duke, they played some pretty good defense last year. Their coach is known for his defensive knowledge and ability, but the quarterback was exceptional. So, I mean, that's going to be a tough opener on the road on Monday night. Wallace Wade Stadium will be packed to the gills, 33,000 plus. And, the Duke fans will be thinking they can win that game. And then later, of course, you get to Florida State, and then at then at Syracuse, and then Wake Forest before the open week. I mean, seriously, there's Charleston Southern and FAU in between. Forget those. Florida State at Syracuse and Wake Forest, 3 in a row. That's not a light touch. I mean, obviously, Florida State's really good and getting better. Syracuse on the road has always been trouble for Clemson. And Wake Forest, even though they lost their quarterback to transfer to Notre Dame, who they will see, they think they're better. And then you go to Miami, and then you go to NC State after the open week. I mean, this, Pat, we touched on it last night. I really believe this is one of the most difficult schedules for Clemson in a long, long time. And it's not that the Tigers, we'll see if they've slipped a little bit. We'll see if they're down some. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't know. I'm in, put me in the I got to wait and see category with Clemson now. This is not the automatic 12-0 run through the schedule Clemson football team, in my opinion. Okay? I don't see it that way. I think they're going to take a lump or two along the way against this schedule. And, that closing grid, November for Clemson, might be a November to remember or one to forget. Notre Dame at home. Of course, Georgia Tech, not expecting much out of Georgia Tech. Forget them. But Notre Dame at home, North Carolina at home, and at South Carolina. All right, 3 out of 4. Pretty tough closing slate there. And before that, you're playing Miami and NC State on the road. That's a tough closing 6 for Clemson this football season. So we'll see. We'll see if the Tigers and Cade Klubnik, if he's the answer, and if the defense is everything that it's expected to be, they can put it all together. But this is going to be a challenging schedule for them, no question about it. And again, based on our poll question, a lot of folks think South Carolina is going to be the team to ruin the perfect season. But you know what? It might happen prior to that against this schedule. So thoughts on that? Anything else on your mind, Pat? I've been traveling and finishing up some things along the coast, got on the road, traveled the afternoon. Is there anything else out there that caught your attention today that you want to bring to the forefront?
Well, first, I want to comment on what you were just saying, and you piqued my curiosity. You were talking about Clemson's 6-game stretch, especially November, but let's factor in those last couple of games in October as well. But then looking at USC's schedule, especially their September, 5 games in the month of September, but let's also throw in that Florida game, which there's a bye in between Tennessee and Florida. But let's say the first 6 games for USC versus those second 6 games for Clemson. Which do you think is a tougher schedule?
That's a good question.
Both are daunting.
First six games for South Carolina versus the last 6 games for Clemson. Let me just let me take a quick look at that so I know exactly what I'm talking about here. I don't want to have to go off of memory because the memory's pretty shot. Memory is tired. Memory is pretty much worn out.
I've got it in front of me if you want me to help.
Well, no, I got it right here.
Okay.
I got it right here. So we got North Carolina for the Gamecocks opening up in Charlotte. And yeah, to me, that's a pick 'em. And I think North Carolina might be a little bit of a favorite. I think it's a pick 'em. I think South Carolina could win that game as easily as it could lose it as of right now. Furman at home. Don't sleep on Furman. Do not take a nap on the Paladins. You shouldn't lose to him. Probably won't, but I think Furman will come in and punch you in the mouth. Then at Georgia, oh yeah, you can see for yourself the cash flowing around Sanford Stadium at Georgia. Then Mississippi State at home. Okay, they're in a major rebuild situation, obviously, with what's happened there. So maybe you're catching them at a good time at home. And then at Tennessee. before your open date. So those opening 5, did you say 5 or 6?
I said 6.
All right, so then Florida the week after in Columbia. So let's look at this and let's give the Gamecocks Furman, let's give them Mississippi State. And then they're not going to beat Tennessee in Knoxville this time around. First of all, I think Milton's going to be outstanding at quarterback at Tennessee. I just can't wait to see that guy throw the football again. He's amazing. And I just don't think the Gamecocks will win there. I think, okay, I'll give them North Carolina. And optimistically, I'll give them Florida in Columbia. Now, maybe I shouldn't. Well, see, I'm basing that on how Florida was unimpressive after they beat South Carolina last year. Help me out here. What did they do down the stretch last year? They were impressive in beating the Gamecocks in Gainesville. Of course, the Gamecocks were terrible that day, just terrible. So if I give the Gamecocks North Carolina and Furman and Mississippi State, and then they lose Georgia and they lose Tennessee, that's 3-2. So I'm looking at either 4-2 or 3-3 at the midway point. And I think if you're the Gamecocks, if you could do 4-2, and then you've got Jacksonville State and Vanderbilt, okay, that's your 6 wins right there. All right, and then you've got to go to Missouri where you just don't play well there, and you got to go to Texas A&M where they're going to be waiting for you, and you don't play well there either. You got to beat Kentucky at home. Beat them in Lexington last year, okay? You kind of got that monkey off your back. You got to beat them at home. And then there's Clemson. So, again, I think the Gamecocks, looking at everything top to bottom, I think they're going to have themselves in position to be an 8-win team and maybe 9. 8-9. I think, and I really think anything less than that would be considered a disappointment with a senior, super senior, however old he is, quarterback. And those transfer tight ends who just look fantastic. I mean, you got to get those guys on the field. And Nick Harbor, you got to get him on the field and get him the football. And Juice Wells, you got to get him the football. They got plenty of pretty pieces. I do wonder about the offensive line, though. I think I do wonder about how good the offensive line's going to be. But they got plenty of pretty pieces. Don't know about the running game. They might not have much of a running game. They don't have that Hoss at running back, I don't think right now, unless maybe, is McDowell going to be the guy? Can he take it? Is it going to be a running back by committee? Maybe the freshman Braswell is going to rise up and surprise. I don't see that dog right there at running back. But tight end, receivers, quarterback, see a lot of great things there. Why not just throw the ball all over the place? Why not give Rattler a chance to throw for 4,000 yards?
We certainly saw last season he's capable of it. I mean, we saw it, of course, back in his days at Oklahoma as well, but people did question how would that translate to South Carolina. His tenure at Oklahoma, we all know how it kind of went down. Caleb Williams is a terrific quarterback, so it's not like he lost his job to a bum or something, but still, we did see how it went, and we did have questions. What would his confidence be like once he came to Columbia? And it certainly grew as the season went, although we saw glimpses of greatness early on. Spencer Rattler could absolutely put up 4,000 passing yards if they so choose. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. The question mark in the running back, at the running back position in the backfield will probably determine that. I would think that North Carolina game will almost be a barometer type game for the offensive staff and the play calling moving forward of what they are able to do and what they are not able to do, a lot of which will hinge upon the production they're able to get out of the backfield. And we talk about it on the show all the time. Half the key to having good running backs is having a good offensive line. You can have the best running back in the world, and if he's running behind a terrible offensive line, good luck. It's not going to go well. So I think we are going to know a lot after that opening game up in Charlotte against Chapel Hill. And while speaking of the Tar Heels, you asked how their season ended last year. Well, they lost 4 in a row. So their season did not end well. They ended with losses against Georgia Tech, NC State, Clemson, and that was in the ACC championship game in ugly fashion, 39-10. Then they lost a close nail-biter in a bowl game against Oregon. North Carolina does return a lot of players, but they also lost a lot of players. I think South Carolina might get them at a good time up in Charlotte. But I just thought that was an interesting thing to ponder, those first 6 games against South Carolina versus the last 6 for Clemson. And then part 2 of that, would you rather have the harder part of your schedule up front? Like, would you rather have a front-ended schedule or have it more on the tail end? And I'm not sure the answer there. That might depend upon the level of experience returning to your team. Didn't know if you had any thoughts there.
Well, I tell you, I just have to change courses because I just saw something I wasn't aware of, and I am shocked and I am embarrassed that I did not, and I apologize. I apologize. This should have been the lead words out of my mouth just a little while ago, but I didn't see this until just now. Somebody retweeted it for us, probably Chris. Again, I've been kind of out of the loop today, traveling. I did not see that Dick Sheridan passed away.
Oh, no.
Today. Oh, my gosh. I'm just stunned. I am absolutely floored to read about the passing of Dick Sheridan, a coaching legend in the country, of course, here in South Carolina, but a national coaching legend. He passed away at the Grand Strand Medical Center. And my goodness, just I'm stunned about this. Elected to the College Hall of Fame in 2020. And we all know what he did, in high school and at Furman and at NC State. Wow. I'm just now seeing that as I was catching up some stuff. So I apologize for not having that up front. And gosh, we gotta talk about that.
81 years
folks.
young.
Was he 81? Yeah.
81.
You would never have known it. I mean, to this day, I close my eyes and I think of Dick Sheridan as this boyish looking figure with that haircut of his. And the last I saw of him, the last I remember, not a gray hair, but the most humblest of people, a guy who never sought attention, who never put himself as a unbelievably successful coach ahead of the players or the team, and he didn't want you to do it either. And wow, I am taken back by that information. So our thoughts, of course, and our condolences to all the Sheridan family and players that played for him, coaches that coached for him. I'm sure everybody was stunned. Well, not everybody. I guess some people knew. I had heard a while back that his health wasn't the best, but I did not know that we had reached this point. So I'm going to try and do something on that now that I have discovered this story. We got to do more on it. So I tell you what, let's hit the break and let's regroup after the break, and we'll go from there. We'll take some phone calls coming up. Phone number 888-898-2525. That is the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. Right here on Sports Talk. Since 2002, more than $4.2 billion in lottery proceeds have been used to fund scholarships and grants for South Carolina students. Learn more about the lottery's impact at seeducationlottery.com/education wins. And playing for fun is a win for education. We'll be right back.
Dumpster Plus is your solution to a more cost-effective and professional work site. Dumpster Plus provides a roll-off dumpster and porta-john in one. Give them a call at 803-500-5094 and ask them about two services for the price of one. It's one free services, locally owned and operated in Columbia, and that means you'll talk to a real live local person, ready to get what you need with a 24-hour turnaround guaranteed. Whether your worksite is residential or commercial, big or small, near or far, you'll save money with Dumpster Plus. Waste management solutions never look so good. Call Dumpster Plus at 803-500-5094. That's 803-500-5094 for Dumpster Plus.
Have you turned on the fun? Try Cash Pop from the South Carolina Education Lottery. Pick one number from 1 to 15, win up to $2,500, or play all 15 numbers, and you're guaranteed to win. Play twice a day to double your fun. It really is that easy. Visit seeducationlottery.com to get the details. Cash Pop. It's the light of the party.
George Bryant here for Tsunami Bar Sports, and some say the fun is in the winning. I say the fun is in the training. And Tsunami Robbie, what do you say?
George, we all know you get more done when you're having fun. This technology is different. It's engaging, but it's also a lot of fun to use.
Hi, this is Phil Kornblut. Be sure to click on the digital ad on SportsTalkSC.com and get 5% off any Tsunami Bar order using promo code BBB5. Don't wait, order today.
Major Downer here from the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. Boating season is just around the corner. To make sure that your boat is ready, check your registration sticker and ensure it's current. Find your registration card, make sure your life jackets are in good shape, and check your fire extinguisher as well. For more information on boating or boat titling questions, visit dnr.sc.gov/boating.
Summer weather has arrived in South Carolina, and you know what that means. Sweet, tasty South Carolina peaches are hitting shelves near you. Most people tend to think of Georgia as the peach state, but South Carolina is the East Coast's top producing peach state, so we know a thing or two about a great tasting peach. The next time you're in the grocery store or local farmer's market, keep an eye out for those sweet, tasty certified SC peaches. Discover more about the tastier peach state at scpeach.org.
Just touch base with Furman head football coach Clay Hendricks. He's going to join us at 7:30 to talk about Dick Sheridan. And so thankful that Coach Hendricks will be available on short notice. And again, I feel terrible that we didn't let off the show talking about some other stuff. This is the story of the day in South Carolina, the passing of Dick Sheridan, an absolute legend in our state in so many ways. And don't forget, he was a very successful athletics director at Furman. But I tell you about Dick Sheridan. I'll tell you a story about Dick Sheridan that I think is factual. I hope it's factual. If not, it's a good story, but I believe that it is. He was a man that believed in a process and in the right way of doing things. And that came with running his program, running his athletic department, and how people reported on him and on his teams. And he did not like it one bit when the news got out in front of doing things the right way from where he sat, which is, of course, if he were making a coaching change, everything being done behind the scenes properly before it was reported, or if he's making a lineup change, whatever the case may be. It had to be done the right way before it got in the media. Well, legend has it, and I believe this to be true. He was great success at Furman. He goes to NC State, and he's having really good success, great success at NC State. And Georgia is looking for a head coach. And they had long eyed Dick Sheridan back in that day. And the story goes, and I think this is true, that Georgia offered him the job while he was at NC State. And my understanding is, and the story goes, and the legend is, that he took the job. To them, in their private conversations, he agreed to become the next coach at Georgia. But he had to tie up loose ends at NC State and make sure everything was done the right way. Well, you know how it is. The AJC broke the story that Georgia was going to hire Dick Sheridan as their new football coach. This might have been, I don't remember if this was when was this after Dooley or Donnan or one of the coaches? But they broke the story. And you know what he did? He pulled out. He says he was not going to let it look like the media broke the story on him leaving NC State before he had taken care of everything at NC State and done it the right way. So he passed on that Georgia opportunity to stay at NC State. And I think that speaks volumes about the man, not just the football coach, but the man and the dignity and the professionalism with which he carried himself. And that has always stuck with me. So we'll learn more about him and hear more about him from Clay Hendricks coming up at 7:30. Mike Morgan at 7:05. I promise we'll get to your phone calls after the break and a nice, lengthy, juicy recruiting report coming your way as well. Okay? Appreciate you being with us tonight here on Sports Talk, on the Sports Talk Media Network. We cover the state here every night, Monday through Friday, bringing you the best conversation, the best insight, and the best news on the sports scene in South Carolina. And we'll continue after this break. Don't go away.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here is tonight's forecast. Cloudy with some overnight showers possible, the low dipping to 74. Tomorrow, more clouds and sunshine, a 40% chance we get afternoon storms while the high hits 94. For the weekend, look for the high temperatures in the low 90s. We have about a 50% chance we get afternoon showers both Saturday and Sunday. I'm Kevin Cohen with your On Point local weather.
Parents ask, what's the best way to save for college? I'm State Treasurer Curtis Loftus, and my answer is always open a Future Scholar 529 college savings account. It's easy. You can get started online with any amount. It's flexible to adapt to your child's college dreams. And you can deduct 100% of your contributions from the South Carolina state tax return. So what are you waiting for? Go to FutureScholar.com and see why it's the smart, easy way to save for college. FutureScholar.com.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting 3 wooden crosses outside a small Los Angeles church have been found burned, and authorities say it's being investigated as a possible hate crime. A fire department spokesperson says firefighters responded to a report of a fire shortly before 5 a.m. Thursday in the Silmar area and found the flames were already out, leaving smoldering wood. One cross had either fallen over or been knocked down in a rock garden in front of Silmar Christian Fellowship Church. Threads, Meta's text-based app, seemingly built to rival Twitter, is live. The app, billed as the text version of Meta's photo-sharing platform Instagram, became available Wednesday night to users in more than 100 countries, and millions signed up within its first hours. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 366 points, the Nasdaq dropped 112. More details at srnnews.com.
Are you looking for free checking and free savings? Dave Ramsey here, telling you to go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank that's so big they lose the ability to treat you like a human being. At Palmetto Citizens, you're not just a number, you're a member. Join today at any of their 14 locations or at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
Are you getting a tax refund? You've been waiting to put those new hardwood floors in? Or is it that luxury vinyl plank that's so hot right now? It's time to call the flooring department. Stretch your dollars here. The flooring department doesn't have a huge multi-million-dollar showroom to pay for. They keep your prices down and your quality up. Look, we all buy from the same manufacturers, so why pay more? Online at theflooringdepartment.com or call 951-3567. That's 951-FLOR.
Summer in South Carolina. No better time to celebrate your number 6 of Pick Me SC with Columbia Animal Services. Take advantage of free adoptions from July 14th through the 22nd. Take a peek at petfinder.com to see all the great dogs and cats available to come home with you. It's the best time of the year for you to be a hero and adopt. Visit petfinder.com and bring your fur baby home.
Hey, Kev here. One thing that's truly unique about The Point is you. We call our listeners the Point family. You've stayed so loyal. You've stayed so supportive. Thank you for that. We call The Point Columbia's local talk radio experience. We're community-driven. We push hard for our advertising partners because they're mom-and-pop businesses, small business owners. People ask me all the time, how can we help you with The Point, Kev? Well, it's pretty simple. Support those who support us. If you hear an advertising partner here on The Point, use them. Support them. Brag to them that you're there because you trust The Point. If you're a local small business owner, I'd love to have you as part of our lineup. Give me a call. Tell me your story. I'll create a customized advertising package that fits your budget and your needs. Nothing corporate, nothing cookie cutter. Look, if you haven't tried radio, it does work, especially here at The Point. Give us an opportunity to share you with our Point family. Call me, 563-8558. That's 563-8558. Or email me directly, kev@makethepointradio.com. I sure hope we could partner up. Join the Point family.
Hey, Tiger fans, it's your head coach of Clemson Gymnastics, Amy Smith, here to tell you that season tickets for our first ever season are on sale now, starting at just $25. Make sure to visit ClemsonTigers.com to secure your seat in Little John Coliseum. We cannot wait to compete this coming January, and believe me, you won't want to miss this. Visit ClemsonTigers.com today and go Tigers.
Did you know? Think about this if you're a Gamecock. At one point back in the 80s, you could have had, I'm not saying you would have had, but you could have had Dick Sheridan and Bobby Crimmins as your head coaches. Both graduates. Can't speak for either. Well, I would think Bobby Crimmins the first time around would have taken the job. Maybe Coach Sheridan would have taken the job as well. Could have had Bobby Crimmins and Dick Sheridan as your head coaches. Dick Sheridan, career record, 121, 52, and 5. That's Furman and NC State from 1978 through 1992. 52, 29, and 3 at NC State, including 31, 18, and 1 in the ACC. 69, 23, and 2 at Furman, including 41, 10, and 1 in the Southern Conference. And I loved his offenses. I mean, he ran that option offense, that I backfield with a fullback, a tailback, a mobile quarterback, and ran that option left, ran it right, pitch it. Quarterback would drop back and throw it deep. Always had really good defenses, including some outstanding linebackers at Furman over the years. More on him coming up as Clay Hendricks will join us. But let's get to your phone calls. 888-898-2525. I can't hide it. I'm just stunned. One of my first jobs, I've had many first jobs. One of my first jobs, real jobs in this business, was in Greenville at a radio station in Berea, located about 5 miles from the Furman campus. I literally lived on the Furman campus in terms of my work. I was there every day. And Coach Sheridan was the coach and then became the AD at that time. And I was there about every day doing something at Furman. So, got to know Coach Sheridan a little bit. And just that was in my impressionable years when I sort of looked at coaches as these iconic figures. Not so sure I have the same opinion today, but then I did. I was young. I was impressionable. I was easily intimidated. But he wasn't that type of guy. But he was iconic in my eyes at that stage, watching him run this Furman program and do it, and his closeness with his players. I just don't know that you see coaches today with the relationship, the closeness with players that he and his staff had with those players back then at Furman. So, all right, enough from me. To your phone calls, 888-898-2525 is the number, and we go to, is it Mark? Mark out on the Isle of Palms. Hello, Mark. Welcome into Sports Talk tonight. Great to have you with us.
Hi, Phil. I played for Coach Sheridan. I'm so glad that you wrote the story and are talking about him. I thought about how best to try to describe to you and your listeners about Coach Sheridan. I played from 79 to 82, and obviously we won the conference 3 out of 4 years, so we had some pretty good successes. But most importantly, now I'm in my early 60s and want to relate the kind of guy that he was and and helped me and a bunch of my teammates and friends that are still friends today become better men and better fathers and better bosses, and do everything that we do today better. But I just wanted to tell you a couple stories about Coach Sheridan. Now, first of all, the story that you told about the University of Georgia, I was lucky enough to hear it directly from him about 10 years ago. So you're almost pretty much dead on. He was actually in Atlanta for the Peach Bowl the second time. I think it was their second Peach Bowl.
Yeah.
When Coach Dooley, and it was when Vince was retiring and becoming the athletic director. So he would have followed Coach Dooley, and they ended up hiring Ray Goff, who had less than a glorious career at Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they offered him the job, and with the one contingency that Coach Sheridan accepted it with was that he needed it to be kept secret until he got back to Raleigh to tell the administration and the president and his players, and and to talk to them. But and obviously by the time he got back to Raleigh, it was all over the news, and so he politely declined.
Mm-hmm.
But another story, I'll tell you, we had two rules, and I don't want to step on Clay Hendricks. I played with Clay. Clay was freshman my senior year, and we were both offensive linemen. But we had two rules on the team, and there were just, well, really one rule, that if you were involved in any kind of event that brought harm to the university, to our football program, two things would happen to you. Either you were suspended for a year, or you were suspended or gone permanently.
Sure.
So it was pretty easy. And just the kind of principled guy he was, obviously every year we'd come back in the fall and there'd be some guy that was a damn good player that wouldn't be there. And so I think that happens a lot with teams, but there were a lot of surprises there. But just to, explain what kind of a man he was probably was the most important thing to me. Over the last 40 years since I've graduated, and Clay will speak to this probably a little bit, that we've only had either players or coaches that coached for Coach Sheridan have been the head coach at Furman this whole time. And you look at his coaching tree with Robbie Caldwell, who was my offensive line coach that just recently retired at Clemson, and Bobby Johnson and Jimmy Satterfield and Bobby Lamb, who's doing a great job getting ready. He started one good program at Mercer and is going to do a great job in Anderson. And so they're all great friends and great teammates. And we just have a great time, to see each other and get together every time there's a Furman game. And we're certainly looking forward to September 9th, returning back to Gamecock country and reliving our 1982 victory. So I just wanted to share some of those stories with you. And
well, thank you.
Thank you for bringing it up. And he was a hell of a guy. Like I said, I think every player that you talk to will tell you that we're better fathers and husbands and bosses and employees because of him. So
absolutely.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate you letting me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for calling. If you haven't heard this, I'm just now this did not come out till about 4:00 this afternoon. I'm reading the release from Hunter Reed, and a memorial service for Coach Sheridan is going to be on July 15th in North Augusta. Details to be announced. So if you weren't aware of that, share that with you.
Well, North Augusta will be a crowded place. I can guarantee you that.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. Appreciate that phone call. This came out about 4:00, and Clay Hendricks will be with us at 7:30, as I mentioned, to talk more. He's quoted in here, but he'll talk more about him. And memorial service on July 15th in North Augusta. All right, back to the phones, 888-898-2525. Is it Tiger Bryan time? No. Is it Gamecock Larry time? It's Gamecock Larry time, GLT. There's Eastern Standard Time, there's Newfoundland time, and there's Gamecock Larry time. Gamecock Larry, welcome in. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Glad to have you back, Phil. Hope you had a good time. I was shocked to hear about Coach Sheridan, but now I'm just going to say I got a lot I want to talk about, but I'll just wait for another day to talk about that. But I got one thing to say to Phil. I believe we gonna have to agree on this thing you was talking about yesterday. I agree with you. But I can tell you some stories about Coach Smart. I can tell you some stories, and he is a great coach. But I'm sure glad we ain't got him. I know some stories. Well, I don't know them from facts, but I got them from people that knew they were facts, and they told them to me. And I'll tell you what, the closest. I hope he stays up there in Georgia or go anywhere else. But he wouldn't have been with South Carolina 2 years before he jumped ship and went somewhere else because he was ready to sign that contract. Georgia fired Mark Rich, the coach that averaged 10 wins a season for 10 or 12 years, fired Mark Rich one day, hired him the next day, give him an extra $2 million, and that's it. And he got one thing going. You know, that's nothing. I'm not going to put up with what Coach Rich put up with. And that's Coach Smart. I don't like him. I do. Well, I was talking on my son talk, but I don't like him. Never have. And him and I'm just still waiting for him and my Muschamp. I'm fixing to. They go butt heads shortly. And when Georgia falls and they butt heads, Georgia is going to fall and fall hard. I'll agree with Mr. Phil Kornbluth 100%.
You're a smart man. You're a smart guy.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm telling you, man. Let me get off here. I'll talk to you guys later. I love all y'all. I sure hate to have my coach sharing. I get to run my mouth. But, we'll talk about that at a later date.
All right.
But I got some stuff. I'm going to talk about it at a later date. I'm going to tell you about this Smart and Muschamp deal. What's going to happen? I'm going to tell it to you. And if I'm gone, you better play it when it happens.
Okay. All right, Larry. You're not going anywhere. Thank
okay,
you.
Love you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. The great Bob Markham. I don't often say that together. The great Bob Markham. You remember Bob Markham? He once made the comment that the fish rots from the head. He was talking about the university president at the time because he was feuding with Dr. Holderman. Remember that? You probably don't remember that.
No idea. Sorry.
But he made the comment, the fish rots from the head. And, when I talk about Georgia, and listen, Georgia's not my deal. I mean, I could care less. I brought it up last night because I'll be honest with you, I was shocked by the video. Now, that's just me. That on top of those stories that the AJC has written, and more, I guess, that they will be writing, tells me that it's pretty loosey-goosey there at Georgia. At least it appears that way to me. Okay, now they've won 2 national championships back-to-back, and they've had great talent, and they had a quarterback to play out of his mind for 2 years. I don't know that Carson Beck is going to do the same thing. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. Maybe somebody else will step in. Well, time will tell. They do have great talent still. But eventually, I believe that those kind of activities within a program erode your foundation. The fish rots from the head. And we'll see what happens over time. I mean, hell, they might string together 3 or 4 straight national championships and make me look foolish. And everybody be hunky-dory and happy as they can be. But I see signs. If what the AJC is reporting is accurate, and I have no reason to believe that it's not, I don't think they're out for any, listen, it's in their best interest that Georgia have a great football program because that drives up interest. But they also are charged with being watchdogs on the Bulldogs, so to speak, okay? As the state paper should be watchdogs on the Gamecocks, and the Greenville News should be watchdogs on Clemson, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if we have very much of that anymore around here, but we'll see what happens. That's just my interpretation and impression that I'm taking from all this, Pat.
Now, we may still disagree, and that's totally fine about that David Cooper video. I still don't see anything wrong with it, but I don't think it's connected to all the other things that we mentioned. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're totally right, and it is just almost death by a thousand cuts type notion, where it's just another questionable activity. But what I was going to say, I just had an article pop up here. I'm reading while you and Gamecock Larry were talking there. Another Georgia football player has been cited for high-speed driving.
No way.
This time for going 88 miles per hour in a 55. And this article is I'm reading this on the Athens Banner Herald by a Mark Weiser. Just came out about an hour ago. And this says, about an hour before a Georgia wide receiver pled guilty to speeding in an Athens courtroom Wednesday morning and was admonished by a judge for putting himself and others at risk, another Bulldogs player received a citation for speeding about 10 miles away. And so the one who was in the courtroom, the player was wide receiver Marcus Jack Saint, and he pled guilty to the speeding charge of going 90 miles per hour in a 45 zone. Gosh, back in May on an Atlanta highway in Athens, he received 6 months probation and a fine of more than $1,000, et cetera, et cetera. Well, and he was their 5th leading receiver last year. If my math is right here, he'll be their 3rd leading returning receiver, including running backs from last season. The newest player, though, is a freshman outside linebacker who just enrolled at the school in January, Samuel Mpemba. I hope I'm saying your name right.
Good luck.
Saying he was driving 88 miles per hour in a 55. He was pulled over driving a Dodge Durango after being clocked at 10:31 a.m. going northbound on 441 at Experiment Station Road. He was a top 50 national recruit in Georgia's 2023 class from Olivet, Missouri, signed out of IMG Academy in Bradenton. And again, this, back to your point, this would probably not be a big deal. It is at the end of the day just a misdemeanor speeding citation, but it comes after publicly there were reports that Georgia head coach Kirby Smart has had to address the team for street racing, reckless driving, and speeding arrests multiple times, and talking about how that may be impacting their culture as looked at from the outside looking in of the Georgia Bulldogs. And so here's yet another one.
The fish rots from the head. Remember that. Take that with you everywhere you go. I didn't create that. Neither did Bob Markham, but he said it and it kind of stuck with me. The fish rots from the head. And until you do something, until you take some punitive action, and I mean, what is the best way to get a player's attention? Suspend him from games and all team activities. That's how you get a player's attention and a locker room's attention. But according to the AJC, there's been none of that. None of that from all these traffic violations. None of that from all the alleged sexual abuse violations that have been reported about in the AJC. Nobody has been booted. Nobody is being sat down. It's a free-for-all. It is an absolute free-for-all at Georgia because right now they are the kings of college football and nobody wants to touch them. And this is what you get. You know, this is appears to be, at least from where I'm sitting, a group running wild, running roughshod over the people. They apparently do not respect the people in charge, which is, it goes back to the head coach and on through the football office and the athletic administration. If I'm the AD, I would be just fuming. The top of my head would be blowing off right now. What you got?
Well, if I'm understanding, and I'll send you this article, read through it, and tell me if I'm misunderstanding here. But if I'm understanding this article correctly, this is saying direct quotes from Clemson, from the Georgia Athletic saying, quote, it does not suspend players for speeding tickets or minor traffic violations, but we do pursue appropriate action. In response to the severity of more recent behavior, we proactively introduced punitive measures to heighten consequences. Georgia Athletics, end quote. Georgia Athletics says players who have what's called a super speeder violation will then have one-on-one meetings with athletic director Josh Brooks to, quote, address high-risk behavior, end quote. And the state of Georgia classifies super speeders as going 75 or more on a two-lane road or 85 or more on other roads or highways. So both of these referenced violations in this article that I talked about. The one who, the young man who was in court on Wednesday, and then the other young man who was ticketed on Wednesday, both would be classified as super speeders.
You know, you would think, considering the tragedy that happened at Georgia in Athens in January, after the parade, after the celebration, that tragedy, that the Georgia administration would be a little more direct, a little more they do something rather than just say we're going to talk about it. We're going to sit down. We're going to have a conversation. You know, you're driving 80 in a 40. You're driving 80 in a 40 in a city.
Yeah, I hate
it's
to say
one
it,
thing
yeah.
if you're on 285. Okay, you're on 285 and you're doing 80 in the left lane at 60, 65 miles an hour. Okay. 80 and a 40 in the city. It's just like those two knuckleheads at Clemson that were drag racing, you know. Now, Clemson never publicly, Dabo Swinney never publicly said that they took any action against him, though I do think they sat down a few games. I think there were some games that they did not play. I'm assuming, maybe correctly, incorrectly, that was connected. But what those two guys did was almost murder, because or almost vehicular homicide, however you want, whatever the legal term is, because a woman almost died. And I don't think enough was done. Now, Fred Davis never really became a player at Clemson. He was totally overblown and ended up transferring out, and you know, he was part of it. The other one did come back and play some for them, as I recall. But I think did he also transfer out? I
believe so. I can confirm that.
But I mean, you know, Clemson did not publicly come out, and I know we had this discussion back then, something about, you know, you got to be careful what you say publicly, because then you're interfering with the law and the potential courts and the potential lawsuits and all that kind of stuff. So I think they were, you know, maybe within the program, you know, they were doing some stuff. But in Georgia's case, you know, if it's one or two guys, if it's a guy here, it's a guy there, okay, you know what? Let's sit down. Let's talk about this. Fellas, I know that you're all driving Dodge Chargers that are black with tinted windows and a Hemi engine and these big mufflers and these big exhaust pipes, and it goes from 0 to 80 in 1.3 seconds. You know, we know you're all badasses because you got NIL money and our boosters are providing you with these cars. Okay, but come on, let's behave a little more like the professional athletes that you are and the adults that you are, you know, now seeking to be, and let's stop racing around the streets of Athens and endangering not only yourself but your teammates and your fans with your reckless behavior. But apparently, it hasn't gotten to that point yet. I don't know how many players have to be arrested. How many deaths do you have to have at Georgia before somebody says enough's enough? You know.
And Phil, it's. And I want to preface by saying this does not mean I'm excusing anything, because it would be just as bad whether these are starters or these are bench warmers. But these are big names. These are not guys that are practice squad type guys that maybe aren't as big of a deal. Again, I know it's still wrong, not trying to defend it. But, I mean, this is like star running back Kenny McIntosh, who had 3 different citations for driving in a 6-month period, including, the worst one was reckless driving, where they don't even know his exact speed, but they estimate he was well over 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And you had him, but he still played in all 15 of Georgia's games last year, amassing over 1,300 yards of offense, including 126 in that national semifinal against Ohio State. And then in that tragic accident where you had multiple deaths, I mean, that was Jalen Carter, who was, number 10 or 11 overall pick in the NFL draft. I mean, these are big name, recognizable players. And I don't know if that is then making it harder for Georgia to want to punish them or what, but it should not matter. If you're number 1 on the depth chart or number 99 on the depth chart, you commit something like this. And what kind of example are you setting as an athletic department or as a program? If you are, the better you are, you know what, the more I'll let you get away with. The more we'll just kind of help you out a little bit here and there. That's just not sure what kind of message that sends.
The fish rots from the head. Just remember that. All right, we're going to go to break here, and then Mike Morgan will join us. We got recruiting coming up. Clay Hendricks will join us as well. One note from USC this afternoon, the Gamecocks have hired Kadisha Sessions as a new assistant coach, the third assistant coach for Dawn Staley, the former Gamecock guard, who had been coaching in the high school ranks. And she now will be joining the USC coaching staff. And I'm sure Dawn Staley is excited about having one of her former players. She played for the Gamecocks from 13 to 16, and they won 5 SEC regular season and tournament titles and reached their first Final Four during her time. And we'll be back.
Someone will be right with you. The Point.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces. Summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107. The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters. The United Arab Emirates has pledged to give $15 million to help rebuild the Jenin refugee camp after the most intense Israeli military operation in the West Bank in nearly 2 decades. Correspondent Karen Chamas reports.
The promise of funding comes after the 2-day offensive massively damaged the area's roads and alleyways. The operation sent thousands of people fleeing their homes. The Israeli military has said the intention of the fierce incursion was to crack down on Palestinian fighters after a series of attacks on Israeli settlers. Local UAE media has said the funding will go to the UN agency that assists Palestinian refugees, the UNRWA, which has recently struggled with funding. I'm Karen Chamas.
Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is condemning what he calls Israel's excessive use of force in its largest military operation in the West Bank in 2 decades, citing its airstrikes and ground operations in a refugee camp crowded with civilians. Some companies are becoming a bit more stingy with rewards programs, and customers are taking notice.
Reward programs, including birthday freebies and discounts, have long been a way for brands to build loyalty and incentivize spending. But last fall, for example, many balked at Dunkin's decision to stop offering a free drink on their birthday and instead give them triple loyalty points on their purchase. Some experts say the cost of maintaining loyalty programs, as well as recent impacts of inflation and changes in consumer behavior since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, are among the reasons why companies may be pulling back. Jeremy House, Washington.
On Wall Street, the Dow down by 366 points. The Nasdaq dropped 112. More at townhall.com.
Miss Prager here. Sue and I mean it when we say dogs are part of our family, and there's nothing like their loyal companionship. So we provide them with Rough Greens, RUFF, because we want them to feel healthy and be with us as long as possible. I know Charlie Kirk feels the same way.
The Pragers and I couldn't agree more. I rely on my trusted furry friend, Mr. Briggs, who's an absolute machine, and he relies on me to provide what's best for him. Naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black has packed Rough Greens, not a dog food, but a supplement full of vitamins, minerals, digestive enzymes, and omega oils that Mr. Briggs absolutely needs and loves. Trying Rough Greens for your dog just makes sense.
Greetings, Naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black here. I'm honored that the Pragers and Charlie trust their dog's health to Rough Green. I'm so confident that Rough Green can help your dog too that I'm offering you a free Jumpstart trial bag. Just cover the shipping. Yes, dog food is dead food, but it doesn't have to be. Go to ruffgreens.com.
The owner of the submersible that imploded during a dive to the sunken ocean liner Titanic is no longer in business.
OceanGate, the company that owned the Titan submersible that's believed to have imploded as it made its descent in the North Atlantic, has suspended all exploration and commercial operations. That's according to a message on its website. Last month's implosion killed all 5 people on board, including Stockton Rush, the pilot and CEO of OceanGate. OceanGate is based in the U.S., and OceanGate Expeditions, a related company that led the Titan's dives to the Titanic, is registered in the Bahamas. The Coast Guard is investigating the implosion. I'm Mike Hempen.
Andrew Tate has lost an appeal against a court's earlier decision to keep him under house arrest. Tate's the social media personality who's charged in Romania with human trafficking. News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here is tonight's forecast. Cloudy with overnight showers, the low dipping to 74. Tomorrow, more clouds and sunshine, a 40% chance we get afternoon storms while the high hits 94. For the weekend, look for the high temperatures in the low 90s. We have about a 50% chance we get afternoon storms Saturday and Sunday. I'm Kevin Cohen with your On Point local weather.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces. Summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point. Please press button now. I said to, genius.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil, Chris, and Pat with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It is Sports Talk Media Network on a Thursday night. Good to be back in the studios with Pat. Chris Bergen remains on vacation. He is actually in Oxford, Mississippi. He checked in with Pat, of course, for a year. Pat ran roughshod through the streets of Oxford. That's why he ended up at Clemson.
That's right, hotty toddy. 720 Stockard, that was where the party was.
Did you really do nothing but party your freshman year?
I was a private school kid that was in a bubble my entire life and suddenly was 10 hours away from home with zero parental supervision for the first time in my life with a military dad and a teacher mom who were quite strict. Love y'all to death. But yeah, that was my experience. I learned a lot of valuable, hard-learned lessons that year, but I think it all worked out for the best.
Indeed. So you went from there to Clemson. You finished up there. So Chris will be back with us on Monday after his vacation. It is now time for somebody who he did vacate a couple of weeks ago. He hardly ever goes on vacation. But when he does go on vacation, it's well-deserved because I don't think there's anybody in the business that works harder than Mike Morgan because he's Mike Morgan and he's on the move. And he's brought to you by Visionaire Solutions. No one else offers this, based right here in South Carolina. Visionaire makes sure the air you breathe in every day is both healthy and safe. Visionaire Purification makes sure your home air is air pollution free. No more viruses, mold, bacteria, stale odors, etc. You notice Mike always has a clear throat, clean nostrils, because his air at his home, it's clean. They make sure your home is full of clean air. They also offer HVAC duct cleaning and sanitation as well. Keep you and your family safe and healthy by simply calling Visionaire Solutions today at 803-220-1811. That's 803-220-1811. Now, a man with the clearest nostrils in radio, never has postnasal drip, Mike Morgan joining us here on Sports Talk.
I owe all my clean everything, throat, voice, nostrils to Chad Shealy. Appreciate all his fine work on that, and it's the only thing that's going to get me through this segment, quite frankly.
Well, that's great. So I was thinking about what to start with today, and you and Pat were talking off air. I guess the Braves. I mean, the Braves have been the team in Major League Baseball here going on over a month, and they stay red hot. Half their team, it looks like, is going to the All-Star game. Can they keep this up after the All-Star break? You know, sometimes you have that hot first half plus, you go to the All-Star break, and maybe you lose a little something after that. What do you think?
I don't think there's a reason to believe that they wouldn't be able to do it. Keep in mind, they're doing all this without two of their top pitchers, who they're going to get back in the second half. I'm talking about Max Fried and Kyle Wright. So, you know, you could always have injuries. That's an X factor. But the thing is, the lineup is so deep that even if a guy went down, there's guys off the bench that certainly would be a valuable fill-in. I mean, with the exception of Ronald Acuna, I just don't think there's a guy that you could lose. And remember, they did lose Ronald Acuna when they won the World Series, ironically enough. I don't think there's a guy you could lose that's really going to set the lineup back. And then on the pitching front, if you believe in the kind of what goes around comes around and everything evens out in the end, then eventually the pitching is only going to be healthier, not more banged up. So I think it's a team that's well orchestrated for the long haul, not just for a hot first half. My only paranoia, if you want to call it that, I've seen enough of this at the collegiate and pro level for a team that just makes it look so easy in the regular season. Sometimes it looks like destiny and the opposite happens and you get tripped up in the postseason. And that can happen because it still is baseball. But I don't think anybody is catching this team in the regular season. They're going to win the East. I think they're going to win it big. I think they're going to be the number one seed in the National League. We know with that new format, what advantage that has. And I just think they're as talented, if not more, than any other team in baseball.
How are they doing it year after year now after they went through the turnover in the front office? And it seems like they have kept their minor league system well stocked. They continue the way I love to see it, even though I'm a Yankee fan and I see the Yankees buy this guy, buy that guy. I mean, I love it when they bring somebody up like a Volpe with the Yankees. I mean, he's going to be the Yankee shortstop. He stays healthy. He'll be the Yankee shortstop for 15 years. But the Braves bring one guy up after another through their system. And I guess it goes back to great scouting, great player development, and then knowing the right time to bring a guy up and let him go into the show.
And the right time to sign him. Think about this. You look at that starting lineup, and they're almost all signed. They're almost all under Braves control for the next several years. From Acuna to Albies to Olsen, who they got, of course, to replace Freddie Freeman. They got a younger version of that, and look, Freddie's still outstanding, but that came down to economics in the future. Austin Riley tied up long term. Spencer Strider tied up long term. I mean, this is not like where they're going to have to go back and rebuild it in a couple of years or find missing parts in this offseason or next. These are all guys signed long term. The brilliance of the way they have managed their money, that's Alex Anthopoulos. I don't think anyone has done a better job in the last few years than he. And to your point, you still have to scout. You still have to draft the right players. You still have to make the right trades. But on top of that, the extra layer of kind of building for the long term is you've got to know who to sign for how much. Sometimes you got to walk away from the table like they did with Dansby Swanson. And sometimes you got to try to sign a guy long term even before you have to. Don't wait out arbitration. Don't wait 5-6 years till he's an unrestricted free agent. Get him early. Give him a bunch of money early because he's only going to be worth more later and harder to sign later. That's been their philosophy, and it has worked to perfection.
Mike Morgan with us. Morgan on the move. Shift gears to some football because we're just, a week from Monday. We convened in Nashville, SEC Media Days, which, of course, has taken on a life of its own from its humble beginnings back in the, early 1990s, late 80s at the downtown Sheraton Hotel in Birmingham. Now it's going to be in Nashville, and they're planning all kinds of big stuff around this media gathering, like concerts and stuff like that, things I haven't been invited to. Maybe, you've been invited to it. But it will be taking place. But now we're really starting to get into serious college football mode. Not that we ever really stopped, because with everything that goes on now with the college game, there is no stoppage to it. But in your mind, to this point of the offseason and this summer, what's one of the one or two big stories around the Southeast that have caught your attention that you've thought about, talked about during your travels?
Well, I think even though it's a year away, when the commissioner and other people go to the podium, during that week in the Music City. The talk of Texas, Oklahoma is going to be there. It's no longer speculation. There's no longer a wait for negotiation out of a deal with the Big 12. It's signed, sealed, delivered. They will be there next year. The schedules are already inclusive of them. So I think that's going to make its way there. I think the excitement of that. The obvious storyline is Georgia good enough to three-peat? Is LSU ready to take the next step? Is Jimbo finally going to do something worthwhile at Texas A&M?
Mm-hmm.
Is Bobby Petrino going to be the savior, or just an absolute dumpster fire in a nitroglycerin plant that is Texas A&M football? And then who's going to be the surprise team? Who's this year's South Carolina, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to be that story that maybe we don't see coming? The other thing I think from a player's standpoint is that last year we were really spoiled with so many veteran returning quarterbacks, several of which were high picks in the NFL draft. This year, there's a lot of the unknown. I mean, you look across the board: Georgia, new quarterback; Alabama, new quarterback; Ole Miss, new quarterback; Auburn, new quarterback; Florida, new quarterback; Tennessee, basically a new quarterback. The fact that the Gamecocks have Spencer Rattler as the unquestioned starter in a second year in the league, that's the exception to the rule this year in the SEC. So I think the anticipation of how all these new quarterbacks are going to fit in this league, to me, is the biggest player storyline.
Yeah, it should give the Gamecocks a bit of an edge, even though they'll be facing a proven quarterback in their opening game against North Carolina. All right, let's go to baseball. And Billy Amick has announced his transfer from Clemson to Tennessee, and he sort of torched the Clemson program on his way out the door, which is, pretty amazing, this whole story, considering his family is deep, deep Clemson. I mean, deep Clemson. But this is a guy that, did not play much his first year and wasn't playing much early. And then they inserted him, and he became an All-American, and he wants to be a third baseman. And Coach Bakich at Clemson did not see him as a third baseman and apparently wasn't going to play him as a third baseman. So he left to go somewhere where he can play third base. And South Carolina went after him hard. Florida went after him hard. But he's going to Tennessee. How do you think that's going to work for both parties?
Well, first off, I didn't know the story about him, to use your word, torching his former school in Clemson. I did not know that, and you just kind of hate to see that, and under any circumstances, I don't care who the school is or who the player is. It's just never a good look for anybody. I'm not surprised Tennessee. There's a few programs, and I've talked about this on your show. There's a few programs that I'm not surprised if they get anybody in the portal.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee is one of them. They've got NIL money. LSU just won a national championship. They don't win that national championship without a lot of NIL money and getting two of the top transfers in all of college baseball. Arkansas's got a lot of NIL money. I mean, NIL is not just football and men's basketball. For some programs, it is very much a factor in baseball. And Tennessee has excelled in the portal under Coach Vitello. So that doesn't surprise me that was the landing spot.
Last thing, we'll let you go. Personal question. Twitter or Threads?
Twitter. I have no motivation right now to pick up an extra social media platform. Three is more than I ever bargained for. And so Twitter has I haven't had this limit with the however many things you can view in a day. That I haven't hit my limit. Yeah. I don't pay anything for Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm more than comfortable with the way it's run and not being censored anymore as the way it was without people knowing. So yeah, I'm down with Twitter for now.
Down with Twitter. Okay. I
That's
didn't even
correct.
know what this Threads thing was, Pat. I saw somebody tweet about
It just started.
Yeah, I saw somebody said, "Hey, I'm going over here to Threads," and I'm like, "What? Threads? That's clothes, right? You're getting a new suit." I mean, in my background, the word Threads referred to fine clothing.
Going to BP Skinner right there. Get yourself a nice suit.
He sells very fine threads, but I don't know where'd that come from, Pat.
I'll be honest, Phil. I'm a millennial, and this is the first I'm ever hearing of Threads. So I'm not the one to ask. I've never had a Twitter account.
It's a meta creation. It's what the dude that owns Facebook is doing to counter Twitter.
The same guy that thought we'd all be living in a VR world, and you and I'd be having office meetings in our little. What was it he created with the VR stuff? I'm not. No,
That's
not
not
for me.
you, huh?
I'm
Yeah.
with Mike on that one.
Okay, Mike. Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. It was a great 4th of July. Nobody got hurt, at least not in my neighborhood.
Good.
And always a good chance to reflect on living in the greatest country in the world, and that is the U.S. of A. Hallelujah.
USA. You're a emotional. You're a national leader, and you're a builder of character and a developer of young men.
Well, I don't know if I'm any of those things, but I did watch the History Channel had a marathon of America, the Story of Us.
Okay.
And it was fascinating. I learned a lot. I slept through history for much of my youth.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. It was really, really well done.
You feel
really
like a better American today, don't you?
I do. Yeah. I really do. I encourage anybody to watch that. Also, there's a segment on there, a show on there called The Food That Built America. I'm not making this up. The history of all kinds of food, which I also find fascinating.
Well, it's always good to flush the communism out of your system on July 4th.
Yes,
so you feel like a better American. Mike,
that's right.
We will talk to you next week, and we'll see what happens between now and then. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Mike.
Sounds good. Be well, guys.
Thank you. You mean I've heard of Threads and you've not heard of Threads? I cannot believe I'm on the cutting edge and you're not.
You are. You're ahead of the game, man.
Unbelievable. All right. Thank you, Mike Morgan. We appreciate it. We got to go to the break. When we come back, we'll dive into recruiting. Okay. You want me to dive into recruiting now?
Yeah. Sorry. I'm having computer issues. I need to reboot this. I'm unable to build our commercial break.
Dive into recruiting and do that here very quickly because I got a lot to get to. Seawells, of course, the sponsor of our recruiting report. They are off this week on vacation. They deserve it. They work harder than anybody in the catering business, in the buffet business. But they'll be back at it on Monday. You make plans to get over there next week for the daily luncheon buffet, and you make plans to give them a call for all your catering needs at 803-771-7385. So I'm going to mix in a few recent things and catch up on some things that we just haven't had a chance to dive into. So if you're just catching up on recruiting yourself, this is a good time. If you've been with it all along, then you'll hear me repeat some things, but bear with us. So Clemson got a commitment yesterday. Offensive guard Ronan O'Connell, 6'5", 275, out of Franklin, Tennessee, and appears to be a nice big pickup for the Tigers. He picked Clemson over Tennessee and Wisconsin. Now the Tigers await an announcement tomorrow from offensive guard William Satterwhite from Akron, and he is choosing between Clemson and Tennessee. The Tigers now have 14 commitments in their class. 7 different states are represented. None are from South Carolina to this point. In fact, they just might put together an entire class without a South Carolinian being part of it. The ones they went after in South Carolina went somewhere else. So need to talk about that one day. I think we will. Running back Daniel Hill of Meridian, Mississippi, has not yet pinned down a decision date. He said last night the end of the month is still a possibility, but not a certainty. Deciding between USC and Alabama with a little Tennessee mixed in for good measure. USC and Alabama had him in for officials in June. He visited Tennessee unofficially in May. He's been talking regularly with the coaches from USC and Alabama, and not much new ground is being uncovered in these conversations. He said pretty much the same old, and about how the family's doing, how his day was, that kind of stuff. But they are telling him, of course, South Carolina's telling him that He could be the person to complete one of their best recruiting classes ever, if not the best, and he'd be able to come in and elevate the program with the other players coming in. He said Alabama's telling him, hey, look at our history of running backs. We can develop you. We can get you to the NFL. Both schools are holding a barbecue for recruits during the open week in late July. USC's is on the 28th. Alabama's probably about the same day. He's been invited to each. He's not yet sure if he will attend either at this point. We mentioned offensive tackle William Satterwhite, 6'5", 300, Akron, Ohio. He announces tomorrow in the early afternoon. He visited Clemson unofficially April 13th, returned for an official visit the first weekend in June, took his official to Tennessee June 23rd. And he also had earlier on his short list Alabama, Auburn, Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, Georgia, Cincinnati. So he's pretty highly regarded. Clemson cornerback target Ashton Hampton of Tallahassee will announce on July 15th. He was at Clemson's junior day in January, back for the official visit weekend in June. He also took officials to Florida, Louisville, and Arkansas. Miami and Florida State were also included on his most recent short list. USC safety target Jalewis Solomon, Ellaville, Georgia, will announce on August the 5th, he told On3 Sports. He also said he plans for another visit to USC for their function on the 28th. He also visited USC last November for a game. He was in April for the spring game, and he took an official visit in June. So the Gamecocks have had him in quite a bit. He also made officials to Kentucky and Florida State. Florida State looks like a major factor here as well. Clemson no longer in the running for safety K.J. Bolden of Beaufort, Georgia. He announced to On3 that he is down to Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, Florida State, and Ohio State. He will also announce on August the 5th. Offensive tackle Casey Poe of Lindale, Texas, named his top 7 in advance of his commitment announcement July 12th. Clemson, Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, Texas Tech, Oklahoma, LSU. One-time Clemson target, offensive tackle Michael Uini, committed to Georgia. Defensive tackle DeAndre Robinson has USC among his top 10. The others are Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Texas A&M, Florida, Colorado, Maryland, Ohio State, and LSU. Linebacker Devin Smith named the top 5 of USC, Alabama, LSU, Auburn, Kentucky. USC's in the top 8 with 2025 athlete DJ McClary of Jersey City. The others are Rutgers, Southern Cal, Tennessee, Oregon, Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State. USC missed on defensive end target D.D. Holmes as he committed to Florida State. USC target receiver Parker Livingstone of Lucas, Texas, committed to Texas. Chapin native quarterback Jaden Bradford of IMG Academy announces tomorrow as well. Liberty was his lone official visit in June. Jamie Chadwell might be grabbing a very fine quarterback prospect. 2025 defensive tackle Amir Adams of South Florence was offered by Louisville. Let's see here. Receiver Cam Coleman. He was a top Clemson target at one point out of Phoenix City, where Clemson has done a lot of damage. He took an official visit to Clemson, had the Tigers on his short list. He committed to Texas A&M. Clemson's in the top 5 with 2025 defensive end Caleb Falk of Highland Home, Alabama. The others are Georgia, Auburn, Alabama, and Florida. He camped at Clemson last month. USC in the top 6 with 2025 running back Justin Baker of Beaufort, Georgia. The others are NC State, Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Michigan. Wide receiver Jadis Jones, 6'5", 180 of New Madrid, Missouri, committed to Coastal Carolina. He's also a basketball prospect. Former Westwood defensive back Zykef Johnson, most recently from Independence Junior College in Kansas, committed to Southeast Missouri State. In basketball, 6'3" guard Austin Hero of Milwaukee, the brother of Miami Heat star Tyler Hero, is walking on at South Carolina. USC women offered 2026 5'11" Jersey Robinson of Phoenix and 2028 5'8" Taylor Williams of Leesburg, Virginia. Baseball, USC picked up a commitment from highly regarded first baseman outfielder P.J. Morlando, 6'3", 194 of Somerville. This is for the 2024 class. He had once been committed to Mississippi State. He's regarded as a state's top prospect in his class, one of the top prospects in the country, expected to be a high draft pick in the summer of 2024. Left-handed hitter who hit .463, 6 homers, and 34 walks last season. And this weekend, he will participate in the MLB USA High School All-American game as part of the MLB All-Star Weekend in Seattle. Okay, we've got the transfer report coming up as well. We'll get to that after the break. And also Clay Hendricks, the Furman coach, going to join us to talk about the passing of Dick Sheridan, but his memories of playing for Dick Sheridan and coaching with Dick Sheridan. That's coming up here on Sports Talk. Don't go away.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here is tonight's forecast. Cloudy with some overnight showers possible, the low dipping to 74. Tomorrow, more clouds and sunshine, a 40% chance we get afternoon storms while the high hits 94. For the weekend, look for the high temperatures in the low 90s. We have about a 50% chance we get afternoon showers both Saturday and Sunday. I'm Kevin Cohen with your On Point local weather.
Hey, it's Jay with the Melting Pot. One of the cool things about working at the Melting Pot is we don't have to push our servers to sell dessert. We don't even have to push them to suggest dessert. You all know it's coming, a big bowl of melted chocolate with all the dippers that you could dream of. How about a flaming turtle, creamy flavor of milk chocolate is melted with caramel flambéed and topped with candied pecans? Or a Bananas Foster, white chocolate fondue melted with bananas and dulce de leche, then flambéed. The Melting Pot, 1410 Colonial Life Boulevard.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting wildfires raging across Canada have already broken records for total areas burned, the number of people forced to evacuate their homes, and the cost of fighting the blazes. And the fire season is only halfway finished. Michael Norton, Director General, Northern Forestry Center, Canadian Forest Service, says that it's no understatement to say that the 2023 fire season is and will continue to be record-breaking in a number of ways. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has visited the capitals of Bulgaria and the Czech Republic, discussing military aid and receiving assurances of support for Ukraine's entry into NATO after its war with Russia is over. Czech President Peter Pavel says it's in the interest of his country and Ukraine that as soon as the war ends, negotiations about NATO membership begin. More details at srnnews.com.
Hey, this is Paul Romanstein, proud owner of Midlands Landscape and Lawns. Is it time for a new lawn? You need to start with a smooth gray done right. Then a must is a new Rainbird irrigation system that comes complete with a 1-year warranty. We will then help you know what turf is right for your yard. Tiff Tough Bermuda is a great turf for full sun. Then let the pros maintain your whole property and keep your new grass green and healthy and weed-free. At Midlands Landscape and Lawns, we hate weeds. So that's why you can find us at hateweeds.com. hateweeds.com.
In July, we of course celebrate our nation's independence. At Shooter's Choice in the month of July, it's a whole month of savings. Some deals are hotter than a firecracker. You know what I love about Shooter's Choice? They've got the huge selection of everything the others can't even seem to get. I love the team at Shooter's Choice. We're talking professionals who hunt and shoot, who know their products inside and out, and who are eager to help you, whether you know firearms or maybe you're a newcomer. Did you know different vendors come in every weekend to show off their stuff? Learn firsthand about their suppressors, about thermal vision scopes, about the newest firearms, and while you're there, save huge on their products. It's a win-win. Traveling this summer? Well, make sure you're locking up your firearms safely in a brand new gun safe. Shooter's Choice has the best selection anywhere in the state. It might be famously hot in July, but it's mighty cool to visit Shooter's Choice in West Columbia on Sunset Boulevard or online at shooterschoicesc.com. Make your first choice, your best choice. Make it Shooter's Choice.
Hey, honey, do you remember if Dad took his meds this morning?
You know, I'm not sure.
He isn't either. Keeping up with his meds is overwhelming.
You know, True Pharmacy packages medication. They showed me a sample, and it even separates them by date and time of day.
Something like that would be really helpful for Dad and for me.
Even better, it's free, just for being their customer. True Pharmacy, 1628 Charleston Highway and 3217 Devine Street. Or TrueRxSC.com.
Hey, Tiger fans, it's your head coach of Clemson Gymnastics, Amy Smith, here to tell you that season tickets for our first ever season are on sale now, starting at just $25. Make sure to visit ClemsonTigers.com to secure your seat in Little John Coliseum. We cannot wait to compete this coming January, and believe me, you won't want to miss this. Visit ClemsonTigers.com today and go Tigers.
Why just talk about something? Why not just do it? I went online to DominionEnergy.com/SC, signed up on the Save Energy tab to have these folks come on out, haul away my old refrigerator for free. Oh, and by the way, they paid me $50 to do this. It was easy. They showed up on time, threw the old fridge on a cart, they hauled it away. I didn't have to do a thing except sit and wait for my check. A couple weeks later, I got my check, made space getting rid of an old appliance I wasn't even using. It's that simple. Go to DominionEnergy.com/SC. Sign up today.
Okay, in just a couple of moments, we'll be joined by Furman football coach Clay Hendricks. But I want to wrap up the recruiting report, and then we'll get to coach. And we have reached the Transfer Portal John report for tonight, the always important Transfer Portal John report, and brought to you by Dumpster Plus. Dumpster Plus, they provide a roll-off dumpster and Porta John in one. It truly is one of the 7 wonders of the world, maybe 8 wonders of the world, because whoever thought about putting a Porta John in a dumpster and making it very convenient for everybody working around that dumpster? Now, they do have dumpsters that don't include the Porta John, but if you ask me, if you got a dumpster, you got to have a Porta John in it. Find out more. Give them a call at 803-500-5094. That's 803-500-5094. The Portal John report, as we mentioned earlier in talking with Mike, Clemson infielder Billy Amick is transferring to Tennessee. He batted .414 this past season, 17 doubles, 13 homers, 63 RBIs, became a first-team All-American. He had just 19 at-bats as a freshman in 2022. As I mentioned, he wants to play third base. He believes that's his position. That's his future position at Clemson. They weren't going to play him at third base. And Pat, going out the door and entering the door in Knoxville, he had some not-so-flattering things to say about his situation there with Eric Bakich at Clemson.
Whew, and that's putting it lightly there, Corn. Yeah, the Clemson standout was interviewed by Mike Wilson with the Knoxville News-Sentinel, and he had quite a lot of memorable quotes in here, many of which he never directly mentioned head coach Eric Bakich, but it sure sounded like directed towards him, starting with, quote, "He is going to let me be me," talking about Tennessee's head coach Tony Vitello. "He is going to let me be me. That is really important to me and a lot of other players. Nobody wants to be put in a cookie cutter of this is how you have to play ball and this is how your game should be. Being your own player is very important for anybody. The past few years, it has been insane how good Tennessee has been. They are arguably the best program the last few years." He then went on to say, quote, "From being the he was asked about how he got into the lineup at Clemson and what a battle it was. Said, quote, "From being the 3rd or 4th string first baseman to having a weird way to get in the game with a guy getting hurt and a guy missing a sign, well, I got in there. It doesn't matter how I did, but I played my ball and played the baseball I like to play. I had fun and swung the bat. That is what I did, and it kept working. They couldn't take me out at that point," end quote. He then went on to talk about more about Tennessee. "I know the way they play and how they go about things and how their coach does things. Something that stuck out to me was how they go about the game and how they play. It definitely attracted me. As a team, it'd be nice to win a national championship and bring that to Knoxville. I would love to be a part of that," end quote.
Okay.
And that was just part of the things he had to say.
You can read all of it. You can pull it up out of the Knoxville newspaper. Mike Wilson used to work in Columbia covering the Gamecocks, does a great job. And you can read more about that there. So Tennessee picks up another stud out of the transfer portal, John, as Mike was talking about. They make a living out of that. Wofford infielder Ryan Galaney's headed to Tennessee. He was the SoCon Player of the Year after hitting .383 with 17 homers, 66 RBIs. Wofford catcher Cameron Gill transferring to Wake Forest. Florida State right-hander Carson Montgomery is in the portal, John. This was reported by D1 Baseball. West Virginia transfer, this is basketball, West Virginia transfer Mohamed Waki has committed to Alabama. And former Gamecock forward Wildens Levesque, who transferred from USC to UMass with Frank Martin, is now transferring to Texas A&M. Played 3 seasons for the Gamecocks, 1 season for the Minutemen, and last season he played 28 games, averaged 5.5 points and 4.6 rebounds per game. So he'll finish up 1 year at Texas A&M.
Tennessee also got NC State freshman All-American Cannon Peebles. He transferred to Vitello and the staff up in Knoxville as well. And then just this afternoon, Missouri catcher Dalton Bargo announced he'll also be transferring to Tennessee. So that's 2 key catcher transfers that they've gotten there because that player from NC State was also a catcher. And now one thing to add, did you mention Braylon Russell and what he announced today?
No.
So he's a class of 2024 running back. He announced his final 3 just about an hour and a half ago, and that is Tennessee, Arkansas, and South Carolina. He also announced a commitment date of July 14th at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. So we'll make it a point to try to bring that here on the show come July 14th.
Very good, and that's one of the running backs the Gamecocks are going heavily after right now, along with the running back from Mississippi who we talked about earlier tonight. Okay, we're going to catch up with Coach Hendricks here in just a moment and chat with him about today's shocking news. I think to most of us, maybe those close were not shocked. Well, maybe so, because from what I understand, Coach Sheridan had a stroke over the weekend, and that led to his ultimate passing today at the age of 81. And we're going to get Coach Hendricks on the line here in just a moment and get his thoughts on his former coach. And I'm sure somebody that he was very, very close to, both as a player and as an assistant coach and as a head coach at Furman, because Coach Sheridan in his retirement years, and he retired for health reasons and was forced to do so way too early. But in his retirement years, I know he made himself available around the Furman football program as well as the NC State football program, I would think. And just stunning news today of his passing at the age of 81. And, I mean, what's stunning, too, is, I mean, to me, Coach Sheridan always had that boyish, youthful look to him. He aged extremely well. We should all age as well as Coach Sheridan aged over the years. I did not realize he was 81 years old, and to look at him, I was just shocked at his age, because I thought he was a much younger man. We welcome in the current head coach of the Furman Paladins. We like talking to him about football and winning games and the playoffs and everything like that. We don't like talking to coaches under these circumstances. So we do appreciate Coach Clay Hendricks for taking a couple of minutes out from what I'm sure has been a difficult day for everybody around Furman University today, Coach. And thank you so much for joining us. And let me just turn the floor over to you and hear from you, your thoughts about Coach Sheridan and your thoughts when you got the news today of his passing.
Yeah, Phil, as always, it's great to be with you guys. Certainly been a tough day for Furman, for a lot of people, and I'm gonna try to get through this. But it just I got the info about the middle of the day, really, a little bit after lunch, and really surprised. It's funny. Coach and I had played phone tag maybe a couple of weeks ago. He was awesome. He would call me. I don't know. We talked every 6 or 8 weeks. And he's asking about football. He's just like he always was. And I'd missed him a couple of times, didn't get him. I was checking back on with Bobby, his son. And at the time, really told me, he said, Coach, I just got to tell you this. He said, my dad got a new phone, and he's having trouble operating it. And he lost a lot of his contacts. But he called me back. I missed the call, and we just never reconnected. I knew he'd had some health issues, but obviously it was still a shock today to get that, get the news that we got. But just, I don't know. I've been doing this. This is 38 years for me, and easily I've been very blessed to be impacted by a lot of great men, but none greater than him. And he, I heard somebody say today, I don't know if it was just excellence in everything. I don't care what you did, that's just how you did it. And that's how he taught us to try to do it. And, that's what we've tried to do, since I've been here. And, he and Bobby Johnson were up at a practice. It's probably been 3 or 4 years ago. Probably the only time I know since I was a head coach, he was actually at the practice. I've never been as nervous as I was probably, I was probably in my early mid-50s when this was going on. I've never been as nervous as I was that day him watching our football practice, and Bobby Johnson there with him, and so, but he just kind of that guy that just, he commanded respect, but he didn't demand respect, and that was just how people thought of him. And, I got there's a bunch of old guys like me now that are, this hit a bunch of people hard.
I know that it has. Can you take us inside the locker room with Coach Sheridan back in your playing days and what it was like to hear from him and what made him such a successful connector with the players and such a successful teacher of the game?
Yeah, Phil, I came to firm in 1982. He had taken over there as the head coach in 1978. Originally came with Art Baker, that crew, in 1973, and really kind of changed the whole perspective of Furman football there going forward. But you think about it, in 1978, I've told people this. I've tried not to let this too many of these young people today, they forget about some of this stuff, but they don't know about it. So I think it's one of my responsibilities I kind of keep our team in tune with some stuff. But, he takes a job in 1978, and I think Furman had been in the conference for over 40 years and never won a conference championship. We win 6 of the next 8. Just pretty remarkable. And I came there in 1982, and so he's been head coach now, I guess, about 4 years or so. I don't know, he just had an uncanny way of connecting with kids where you just didn't want to let him down. I don't know if I hardly ever heard him raise his voice, but there was no question about who was in charge. He is probably one of the rare football coaches that I've been around who I think he could have coached any position on both sides of the ball and done it probably as well as anybody you could have on your staff. I just think he was incredibly intelligent, attention to detail. But I don't know. I think he's the guy that had you hear this a lot in the coaching world. He got guys. He got really guys to play better than they were capable of probably playing.
Mm-hmm.
I know. He's I've always heard this that he could take yours, he could beat you with his, and then take yours and beat you with theirs too. And I just think that's kind of how he was. And you look at what he did, both at Furman, and I actually went with him to NC State, and I was a senior in 1985, and we just beat NC State back-to-back years, and they weren't a real good football team. I remember, but this was coach in 1985. We're up there, and I think we ended up winning the game 42-20. Had the ball down about the 5 at the end of the game. We could easily scored it. I think we took about 3 knees, and that's just kind of guy he was. And he had principles. He was never going to bend those principles for anything or anybody.
Yeah.
And, and you just knew as a player, don't dare cross that line. And then we go up there, and I think NC State, because I was right there on the very first staff with him as a graduate assistant, and sitting in the back of the room, I think maybe they'd been 3-8, 3-8, 3-8. We won 8 or 9 the first year, and then, but it just, I don't know. He just had a really unique way of reaching people. Whether you're the best player or the worst player, he made y'all feel the same. He treated people incredibly well, and I've gotten all kinds of messages today. I think some people just want to say something. And I mean, I've had trainers from when I was playing that he hired that I hadn't heard from you talking about, him and how he treated them and the kind of guy he was. And, I really thought when he got out of coaching there, I guess early mid-90s, I really never thought he wouldn't coach again. But, he never did. We enjoyed our trips to my wife and I and our family. We've kind of Pawleys Island's kind of a place we like to go. And, he was up there Surfside Merle's Inlet. And every time I was there, I would call him and we'd go, meet for breakfast or lunch or something. And, and he wouldn't talk about football. And, he was always still studying the game. And then I had a chance, a couple years ago, he was inducted in the College Football Hall of Fame in Las Vegas, and I had a chance to go be a part of that. And, it's amazing how many people showed up. I can remember being in the South Carolina Football Hall of Fame when he went in, and I'm sitting at the table with Danny Ford. And I think, Phil, half the room were Furman people, ex-players. And I can't exactly remember what Coach Ford said, but he made a comment just about how remarkable that was. Just kind of what it, and there were quite a few NC State people there too.
Sure.
But yeah, that's just kind of who he was.
Visiting with Coach Clay Hendricks of Furman, reminiscing about Dick Sheridan, who passed away today at the age of 81. As a coach, you said he could coach any position, but let's stay on the offensive side. And as an observer of your teams that you were on and the teams he was coaching back then, I mean, I marveled. I loved the offense, the I formation with always had a big burly fullback and a talented tailback, a quarterback who could make decision on the move, who was also a capable passer. What was the secret to his success there in designing that offense and operating it the way they did so efficiently?
Well, we always, we took a lot of pride in being able to run the football. We did have some great running backs. There's always a little bit of an element of option in what we did. We did enough. I think probably, you think back, that's a bunch of years ago, but just, I think really the balance, even in that day, probably when there wasn't a lot of balance, I don't think probably got enough credit for a lot of things we did in the passing game. But I just felt like you had to be that way. We've just kind of finished this little, we've had this quarterback receiver camp that Coach Sheridan, I think he started it in 1980. I think Bobby and I talked about this. I think because Bobby and I went to high school together. I think Bobby attended the camp first year they had it. We've been doing it for over 40 years, and it evolved a little bit. We kind of went back to it, but nobody was doing anything like that at that time. And then, 2 years later, I think we had an offensive line coach, Robbie Caldwell, started it, and it was the same way. We felt like those guys were pretty skilled guys themselves. Why not have a place where you could get them there to develop? And so we've kind of continued to do that. So I think he was a little ahead of his time, and again, I just think really, really bright, just incredible attention to detail. We always felt like we're a team, we're going to beat ourselves. And again, I think he just had a way of getting kids to believe they were probably a little better than they were, or could play a little better than they were. I know that my 4 years there, we won in Columbia, we won in Atlanta against Georgia Tech, we won twice at NC State. Again, he was just a unique guy in that way. I can tell you this. One of my first memories. I think I'm a freshman at Furman. I was an offensive lineman. I wasn't very highly recruited at all. And Robbie Caldwell was the offensive line coach. And Coach Sheridan had coached a lot of offensive line in his day. And we would go to individual time, and Coach Sheridan would come down there and he'd split everybody up, and Coach Sheridan would take part of the group and he'd take part of the group. And I remember this to this day. And like I said, this would have been the fall of 1982. And I can remember him coaching the heck out of me. I don't know if my step was 4 inches from where it should have been or 6 inches from where it should have been. But that just kind of stuck with me, because I'd played for some really good high school football teams, you know, and it wasn't like I'd been coached before. But I just, you know, I think that's one of those times that just kind of sticks with me, and that's just kind of who he was, you know, and just
precision,
ultimate.
precision, right? Precision.
And that was him. I mean, that was him, and yeah, like I said, he was fun to sit and talk about it. If he was sitting here right now, I'd be nervous, you know. and he didn't do anything to make you feel that way, you know. But it was just you had that much respect for the man.
Absolutely, Coach. I want to thank you so much for being with us. I know it's a tough day. You got a lot going on, and then you got this on top of it. But thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. All the best, and we'll see you soon.
That'd be great. Great being with you. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, Coach. All right, Clay Hendricks, head coach at Furman, couldn't think of anybody better off the cuff so quickly to join us to talk about Dick Sheridan. Dick Sheridan certainly on the Mount Rushmore of not just football, but athletic figures in the state of South Carolina. Don't forget, he was a state championship basketball coach at Orangeburg-Wilkinson. And he was with that Art Baker group that went through Eau Claire, and then eventually followed, I think this is right, followed Art Baker to Furman. And when Coach Baker left to go to the Citadel, right, stayed behind and took over Furman. I think I had to check my history books on that, but I think I'm close to being right there. So thanks to Coach for being with us. We really, really appreciate it. Approaching the end of the show, we've had some folks waiting. Can we take the call? What you got, Pat?
We can. We'll come right to you, caller, but just a quick note here. We missed former Clemson Tiger basketball player Hunter Tyson has inked his deal with the Denver Nuggets. He reached a 4-year agreement worth up to $7.7 million. Mike Singer of the Denver Post is reporting. And he and fellow former Tiger and teammate Amir Sims are actually playing together on the Nuggets Summer League team.
Sure, that's not guaranteed as a second-round pick.
That's a great question. A portion of it is guaranteed, but it looks like maybe just the first year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
no, the first 3 years. The first 3 years of the deal are fully guaranteed, with the Nuggets holding a $2.41 million club option for the fourth year. Wow,
that's pretty good. Yeah. Also saw, we didn't mention this yesterday, but saw where former Gamecock corner Cam Smith signed his deal with the Dolphins. And he's getting a nice chunk of change, several $1 million. And former Gamecock assistant basketball coach Chuck Martin, this is something you got to keep an eye on in recruiting, has taken the job at the University of Kentucky as an assistant coach there. And keep an eye on Lexington High star Cam Scott, who visited Oregon because Chuck Martin was an assistant coach at Oregon. Now he's at Kentucky, so I would think that they're going to turn up the wick on that recruiting, Kentucky and Chuck Martin, and going after Cam Scott, I would think. Let's go to Bruce in Missouri. Final minutes of the show tonight. Bruce, we thank you. Is it Bruce?
And no, that's my bad. We actually lost Bruce. Sorry, Bruce. If you're able to hear us now, call back tomorrow.
Sorry about that.
Sorry. We are going to Gary up in Easley. Thank you for holding
All
us.
right, Gary in Easley. Gary, welcome to Sports Talk. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Hey, we're terrific. Great to have you with us.
All right. About a week ago, you said, I think it was probably last Thursday, that Dawn Staley had tweeted out a little birdie.
Yes.
But I never saw or heard any more about that. Do you have any more information?
All I can tell you is that she tweeted out today that when Kadisha, am I saying that right? Kadisha Sessions joined the staff. She tweeted out that a former birdie had joined them, but then she also tweeted, somebody asked, when are that person, when are the Gamecocks going to hear about this most recent commitment? And her response was something like soon. real soon you'll find out who that one is. So that person hasn't announced yet, but I get the feeling it's coming pretty soon.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your phone call.
And a little bit of more information on that because you just got me curious.
Yeah.
Coach Staley tweeted out this afternoon, and this is a quote, an older Gamecock women's basketball birdie just flew into the nest, and she was talking about the coach who's now joining. So she did want to clearly here separate the two. So for the caller there, this former player, now coach, is not the birdie that has entered the nest. There is another one still to come.
Yeah. And I guess you're just letting her announce it at her own timing. Okay. Well, thank you all for being with us tonight. Again, we send out our condolences to all associated with Dick Sheridan. Appreciate Coach being on with us tonight, Coach Hendricks. And we will be back tomorrow night here on Sports Talk, and we'll see you then.
Weekdays from 7 to 9 on The Point. It's Kev and Brian in the morning. The news, the traffic 4 times an hour, and your daily forecast. Topics to wake you up, topics to make you smile and laugh. Hope you'll join us.
The Point.